Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast, a space for heart-centered entrepreneurs to live in deep alignment with what matters most, overcome subconscious limitations, and shift their energy into an unstoppable force. Before we get started, take a deep breath, hit the subscribe button, and enjoy the show. Okay, hello and welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I am so excited today to introduce our guest, Dana. Dana is, she's in a similar space, but does things, of course, all of us coaches, we do things differently. So I was excited to hear her story. She is, I'm going to read her bio or little parts of it. It says, for the longest time, I used to think my intuitive gifts made me a little bit of an oddball. And it seemed like anytime I met someone, even a total stranger, I'd hear the words, wow, I've never told anyone that before. And for a while, it sounds like guiding people back home to themselves was her superpower. And she continues to do that today. And now she's working with C-suite executives, new people, team managers, nonprofits, social impact leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, and many other working professionals. So Dana, thank you for being on today. I couldn't wait to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so I would love to hear a little bit about your journey to start, because I always love to hear the stories. It's more for me than it is for the listeners, let's be honest.
Where do you want me to start?
So how did you go from, because you were working in corporate, right?
Yeah. So
how did you do that to what you're doing now?
It's a very long journey. And not really one that I pre-planned or that I actually even ever recommend to anyone. I was in the corporate space after I graduated college, and it was fantastic. I worked for Goldman Sachs. I loved it. I worked for really smart people with really smart people who are very efficient. And motives were very clear. I have never again experienced that situation. But just life happened in a way that really told me my goal and what I felt like was worthwhile pursuing in life was figuring out how to be happy. And so being at Goldman Sachs, I was very fortunate to be surrounded by people who had a lot of money, who made a lot of money, and who money wasn't an issue in any way, shape, or form. And I could see that it's not that they were necessarily unhappy, but I could see that joy and happiness was still something that needed to be achieved and to look for and find. And money really wasn't the answer. And so for somebody that didn't come from money, that came from a very working class family that had a lot of obstacles, it was very eye-opening at a very young age to be given that gift. And honestly, that's really been my North Star, that money will come and go, but you being able to cultivate happiness in your life, that's a whole different thing. You being able to find joy in life, you seeing the joy in life, you see the beauty in life, you savor it. That's really worth spending some time to develop as a skill set in your life, and to bring those people into your life that are able to do that and enjoy doing that. And so, I was very fortunate to travel a great deal and live and be surrounded by cultures of people who, again, that was a skill set they knew how to do,
Right.
So that was a gift to really be able to see that. Here in America, we really we think we need a lot of other things. Literally, we think we need things.
Yes. Yes to that.
And I like things, don't get me wrong. I love things that are beautiful. I love all of that. I love experiences, but learning how to be happy and learning how to be joyful within yourself, that's really key. And so, I left Goldman. I worked in international development in Serbia and Croatia for a while. And then I went to business school for social entrepreneurship. So how do I bring together this idea of doing good, being good, and be in the business world and have impact? And I went to the Mecca in Berkeley of like how all this comes together. And I had a great experience as well. And I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in the food space because that's my passion, land and food and health, right? How do we, eating what you eat is foundational in health. And when I was in Europe, I got certified as a yoga teacher. I was living in Serbia and Croatia, and there were no yoga studios there at that time. So in order to practice, I had to be my own teacher. And so I carried that with me, and carried that was just like this undercurrent thread that I would always come back to. And I actually started my practice when I was in college. So I was very fortunate. My part-time job was nannying for a woman so she could go to Baron Baptiste yoga classes. So I had yoga at a very young age, and really at a pretty high level of stewardship. So I was very fortunate to kind of be in this environment where all these things could kind of come together. And I just found after business school, San Francisco, for a Houston girl that's used to the sunshine and used to the heat, I found the cold and the gray incredibly challenging. And so I came back to Houston, where I was from. In large part to help take care of my aging grandparents. My mom lived here with my grandparents. They were a big part of my life. And so we actually lived in a multi-generational home here in Houston. So we got a house that all of us could be in. And we cared for my grandparents till they passed.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that kind of brought in a whole nother aspect to life and being happy and how you be happy with your family. And while I was in Houston, I did work for some healthy food startups and yoga company. I worked for a major international yoga company. Both of those working experiences were probably the worst working experiences of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And that's really saying a lot for somebody. Like I worked in investment banking in New York, London, Russia, Serbia, Croatia. Like I worked in some areas that super male dominated, kind of like what we think of as very not progressive, right? But it really took coming back to my hometown to have in progressive industries to have experiences that were really not good.
Yeah.
And so that was the universe really pushing me to have my own business. And the client that I was working with at the time, all during this time, I taught yoga on a part-time basis. So I always was here and there teaching a class, taking classes, what have you. But it wasn't until I took up breath work, which was really kind of in this like horrible period of time, that my practice really expanded. So yoga, at that point, I had practiced yoga for 10 years, probably since I was 18. So more than 10 years, 15 years, I've been practicing yoga. And so I was meditating. I had, my yoga practice is very strong, meditating, chanting, very regular practice. And it gave me ease. It gave me flow. It gave me insight. But it wasn't until I started doing breath work that like my mind was blown open to the possibilities and the understanding of oneness, and that like I am all that is, and all that is me. Like I had the physical embodiment of that experience. And so, from then on, I really like breath work was really one of my main practices. And I dived in, I got certified to be a trainer and a teacher. And, to this day, if you want to transform, breath work is the fastest way for you to transform. There's no other way around it, because breath work is our link to what is ethereal in the world, like what is the unseen realm, right? If you think about breath and just the dynamics of breath, think about it, right? Okay,
right.
breath, you don't see air, you can't see it,
right?
But when you breathe it in, like literally that's the driver for your body to create, right? Your cells are motivated to work, your body functions because you take in what you can't see and your body transforms it and makes it like your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, if you can learn to understand that relationship and your relationship to breath, then you start to understand your relationship to life and life force and like the world around you and how you create the world around you. And the way that I always, like the simplest things, right? Breath is our life force energy. As humans, we have two kinds of life force energy that we work with. We work with breath, which is a sustaining life force energy, right? We come into the world as babies, we take a breath, and now we're like humans, literally.
Right.
And it is that process of breathing that sustains you through life. And when you stop breathing, then you are no longer in this body, right? Like then they say that this life ends for you, right? And so that breath is that sustaining energy. And sexual energy is that creation energy, like the power to create life is that sexual energy, right? So we can use that energy to create all kinds of life. And clearly, you can create another human life from it, but all kinds of life get created from that life force energy. And so as we develop this relationship with breath, right, then we can really start to cultivate and be an active co-creator in our life versus a passive creator, right? And so what I mean by that is we're always creating our life, right? That's who we are. That's what we do as human beings. But most of us do it unconsciously. And so all our subconscious patterns, right, come forward and drive our life. And because we don't see them, right, we think other things are driving our life, but really it's our subconscious energy and patterns and held energy in the body. But your breath will show you where those are, what they are. And really, what I do with my clients is work with that to understand and then clear those patterns. And so from simple things, right? If breath is life, right? Where we stop breathing or where we stop taking in more life are areas of life that we don't have the ability to process. And so we try and stop it. We try and keep it from happening because we know we can't process it. And so we hold our breath.
Such a clue, really, such a clue. Really. So one of the things I'm just curious, like one of the things I feel like people, when I work with clients, one of the things I feel like they struggle with the most is the slowing down to breathe, to meditate, and to all those things, because they may be doing it on some level, but not to the degree that really makes change happen. And it's a catalyst for so many other things to happen. So share with us, like, what's your self-care practice? Like, what's your morning routine look like? I probably opened a whole Pandora here.
I know. I'm all like, wow. So I meditate a lot. That's the truth. And I do a lot of self-reflection, and I use meditation as a tool. So, in most language that we talk about meditation, we think about meditation as stopping the mind and getting quiet, right?
Right.
And so for most people, that's incredibly hard because we've trained our mind to really think. And what our mind does is really think all the time, right? And we want it to think, like that's its job. Like you want your heart to beat, that's its job.
Right.
Right. And so our job as meditators, right, and as really up leveling ourselves as human beings is how do we focus the mind, right?
Mm.
And so how do we learn to direct the mind? So how do you hold your mind still, like at a point, so then you can train your mind to focus on what you want it to focus on and really what your heart and what your higher self and your soul's purpose wants your mind to do versus what all your subconscious programming wants your mind to do, right? So my self-care practice. So I am being super kind with myself right now and really looking at up-leveling my self-care practices so that they really feed kind of this new version of myself that's emerging. So I take a lot of time. That's the truth right now.
Yeah.
I wake up slow. I have my hot beverage, whatever that is. I relax a little bit. Then I meditate for probably an hour. And probably 30 minutes of that is clearing anything that's come up, looking at kind of where the energy blocks in my system are and letting those go and letting that process through. And then I spend the next bit really focusing my attention on what it is my heart desires for the day. Right. And so that
beautiful.
Yeah. So that varies. And that's a practice, right? Like it takes a bit to be like, oh, right, focus, like, what does your heart want?
It does. And I find that, I mean, I've had some form of this for years and years and years that I've done. And it's always ever changing, quite honestly. Every few months, I feel like I add something different or, just a different routine. I mean, right now, my favorite thing to do now that the weather has changed is to walk through the yard barefoot. And go, touch a tree or a flower or, just really take my time in that. And that's part of my morning routine as long as the weather permits. What I find though is this is what I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more about, because when I talk to people about this, sometimes I think they don't get it. Like they don't realize the benefits of it. And I mean, literally this can bring you more focus. It can bring you so, and I know you know a little bit more on this. So, because this is your world. So tell us a little bit about what would be different for somebody that's maybe starting out in this world of meditation and breathing and taking all the things in.
I think the biggest thing is expanding your awareness. So, the truth is you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
And so my job, the hardest part of my job is on the initial, the initial intake, right, is having people buy in that the reality is your world could be vastly different just by you changing your perspective, right? And so what taking time does, what slowing down does, allows your natural system to begin to feel comfortable and for your natural awareness to start to come to the forefront, right? Where you'll just start to see things or connect things in a way that that you were moving too fast to before, right? Or if we're always going after something that we think we should have, or a goal that somebody else has put out there, right? Then we miss all the things that we are designed and meant to do, right? Which feel way more amazing than trying to achieve something that somebody else has put out there for you. Does
Yep.
that make sense?
It totally makes sense. You're speaking my language here. I mean, I literally just did a couple episodes back from this and a whole episode on, when we're not in alignment with what we're doing and we don't slow down enough to really know what that is. And my own experience of following someone else's success, program and how it makes you feel. You don't like it's icky. It doesn't feel in alignment and everything feels hard and you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out fast.
Yeah. And then you're going to wonder why you failed. That's the worst part, right?
Right.
I did everything everybody said that I was supposed to do, and I still feel like a failure. Even if I got the thing, I still feel like a failure.
Yeah. And bottom line is, I feel like we could go on forever on this, but bottom line is you're not being yourself. And the only way you can be yourself is to slow down and do these things that Dana's talking about. Right?
Yeah. The things that your heart wants you to do.
Yes.
Like that. I think that it's the courage to have that really honest conversation with yourself about what actually makes me feel good. What does my heart really desire? Does running 3 miles a day really make me feel good? Like, do I check a box at the end of the week? It's like, okay, great, I did it, like, or does it really like light you up and make your heart sing? You know what I mean? Like, what are those things that actually feed your soul and feed your brilliance? That's self-care.
Yes.
Right? That's what self-care is. And for most of us, that's a new skill set.
It is.
Weren't trained to do that. We don't even know how to do it, right? Like there's a learning process there, a learning curve of what does it mean to listen to your heart? How do you know it's your heart? Like how do you have the courage to do something that no one else told you to do, but you feel like you should do?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to throw this in and then I want to ask you another question just for the people that are new to this. My guess is you did not start meditating for an hour long.
No, I did not.
So it's like, if you know someone that's, running marathons, they didn't start and just start running marathons. So I think that's important to say that, you got to start. You just have to start.
You do have to start. And when I tell people, and again, like this is the idea, right? We have this image that meditating is sitting, being silent, and having your mind be quiet, right? And that is meditating. And the truth is that's not meditate. I mean, it is a form of meditation, don't get me wrong. But there are as many forms of meditation as there are humans. And so every single person already has an activity that you do that puts you in the zone, that calms you down, that relaxes you. Maybe it's floating in the pool. Maybe it's swinging in a hammock, right? Maybe it's needlepoint. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's playing music, right? Like maybe it is running or walking or some physical activity. And the idea is that you bring an elevated level of awareness and consciousness to that activity and transform it into a meditative practice, right? And so take what already makes you feel good and already puts you in the zone, right? And put a structure around it with increased level of awareness that you can then make it into a practice that teaches you how to train your mind to be focused.
Yes. Thank you so much, because I don't want to lose like the people that are new to this, like, because I really think it's important. we don't do enough of it. We're constantly plugged into social media and to-do list and told to do all day long. You got to, grind and do this. And it's so important to slow down so that you can be clear on the direction that you are purposed to go to. Because otherwise you just miss it. You miss it.
And taking that space, really learning how to take that space is really important. I have an activity that I often do with people that brings awareness to what is on their list to do and what they actually have to do and what actually they don't have to do.
Oh, I love it.
And most of the time that frees up plenty of space.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think one of the things, when I work with people is removing things like, oh gosh, we were talking about this morning, people pleasing. I know so many people are struggle with that. And when you remove all the things all the activities that you said yes to because you're people pleasing and you get rid of that limitation, it frees up a lot more space and you can do things like meditate and really get quiet and clear on what it is you want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. So I wanted to ask you, because I know you talk a lot about intuition as well. Talk about the subject of intuition and your annual review.
Oh, you're right. So this is
so tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
So I have multiple clients who their manager, the person who writes their review. In different places, it's called different things. So whoever it is that writes your review, right? In both of those reviews, they were highlighted as having intuition as an asset. That as their boss recognized that their intuition and their ability to follow their intuition was an asset for them and for their company. I mean, that to me, I was like, wow, I did my job. That's great. That
it's important. It's so
important.
Yeah.
These clients are women. All the work that I do with them is really about them stepping into this place of authentic leadership, that their leadership style does not look like the male-driven styles that they are surrounded by and that dominate the organization or organizations. And so really being able to step forward in the confidence of who they are and the style that they do have and the value of that style. And then really being able to listen to their intuition on what's important and what's not important. And what needs to be focused on and what doesn't need to be focused on, or things that need to be highlighted, or intuition works in a variety of different ways. But in these environments that honestly are very male dominated, to have them highlighted as having their intuition as an asset. And so that means in priorities, right? Maybe the old doctrine said, these are the 5 list of priorities, and their intuition pulls out, you know what, this thing that we're not highlighting or that hasn't been historically highlighted, we need to focus on because something else is coming down the road. And we're going to need this. And then lo and behold, they do it, they focus on it. And then, 2 months later, something comes out and it's a gold mine that they have already focused on this particular thing. Right. And that happens time and time again, right? With people, with situations, with priorities, with focuses. And so they see it as an asset and they see it as super valuable. And then their teams and their superiors also are oh, okay, she's got that plugged in, and that is an asset and a skill set. And we see it play out over and over and over again. Right. And so,
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's how it develops into a skill set. Does that make sense? Versus somebody just being intuitive, or
Yes.
I don't know, have a sixth sense about something, or a gut sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
It's
get it. There's an aspect of really taking, I feel like, you can tell me if this is right, but it sounds like there's an aspect of really trusting themselves and being confident in the intuitiveness.
Yeah. And so that's a refinement of your ability to work with your intuition,
Yeah.
right? Into a
Yes.
level of mastery. And so, uh, for myself, I can just say this for myself. For a long time, I was scared to really be honest about it and be like, okay, it just happened like this. Like, okay, I just was lucky on that one. Or
Right. We tend to downplay it.
way downplay it. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, no, this is who I am. And my job is to refine this skill set so that I master it. And so that it is really a very strong asset for me, and a way to walk in a world that's different. It's like anybody else that has a skill set, like a basketball player, like if jumping and shooting is your thing, you get really good at it, so you know how to use it in all the myriad of situations that you need to.
Absolutely.
Intuition is exactly the same. We just don't think about it that way, or we
No.
haven't highlighted it in that way. But it takes, and that's why meditation and awareness is important, right? When you learn how to listen to your heart, and when you learn how to listen to your body, right?
Yes. Yes.
Also, like, how do you listen to your body and listen to what your body needs? It's not being selfish. It's not being sensitive. I mean, it is sensitive, right? And it is putting yourself first, but it's really this refinement of how your system communicates with you, right?
Right.
How do you perceive the energy and the information that you are receiving in? How do you calibrate your your nervous system to receive that information and process that information appropriately, so that you are equipped, as you are designed to be equipped, to walk in the world and share your gifts?
Mm. Right. Right. And I'll add, like, everybody has this. So men, women, everybody has this ability to do it. It's the slowing down and beginning to cultivate the meditative practices, or the breathing, or whatever that is for you. For me, I love, I
Yes.
have a big combination, but connecting with nature is huge for me. So there's so many different ways. So I appreciate that you said all of that.
Yes. And nature, one of the reasons why nature is so huge is because nature operates off this system, right?
Yes.
If you look at the
Yes.
way animals and nature operates, nature, they, like, everything in nature receives in information about its surrounding environment. It doesn't have a book, like, nobody's telling it. It doesn't go to school.
Right.
It has the ability to receive in information, process it, and, like, do the next things that it needs to do to survive and function and thrive, right? We're designed the same way as humans. We just have we have a mind that gets programmed with a lot of other things. And so we don't often take the space to learn how to receive in the information that is available to us. And that's really what intuition and awareness and sensitivity all does.
Yes.
Just tend to not think of that way, because sometimes in our overstimulated world, it can be not feel so good.
Right. Right. And we are definitely overly stimulated.
Yeah.
So, a fun question for you.
Yes.
What's growing in your garden?
Oh my gosh, I have so much. I just went to pick this morning. I picked tomatoes, like the little baby red and yellow cherry tomatoes, and a whole bunch of Swiss chard. But I had zinnias and marigolds, and I have an eggplant that's little, and I'm getting ready to pick cucumbers, green beans that I have to cook tonight. What else? I have the mustard greens are like at the end because it's getting hot here.
Uh-huh.
I have kale, and I have some butterfly pea flowers that are growing. I have loads of flowers. So lots of my garden is dedicated to bees and butterflies. So I have
right.
loads of flowers growing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I had to ask. I had to ask.
Of course. What's growing in your garden?
So we have a lot of shade where I live. Like our lot is very shaded. So we don't have a lot of garden-y things other than, tomatoes on the deck and some herbs on the deck. But I love flowers. So peonies are my absolutely favorite. And they're all blooming now. And that's one of the things I will go out every day as much as I can while they're blooming and just take a big whiff because they're just beautiful.
That's my dream. They're very hard to grow here because it's so hot.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can imagine. They're perfect here because we've got the perfect spot for them. So anyway, I have probably more flowery things than I do things to eat.
Great.
At this point.
So powerful.
Yes. Yes. So tell us, what is the best way to connect with you? If somebody wants to talk to you, tell us a little bit about what that process would be if they want to connect with you and maybe work with you.
Yeah. So I have a 30-minute free initial consultation that you can book right on my website, danashamas.com. And that's easy and super fun. You can schedule it right there and it'll book you in. And that gives us time one-to-one, which is easy to connect with and understand where you are and what your needs are, and then what program might be best for you, whether it's one-to-one coaching or my group coaching program. I am just about to launch, actually this week, I will be launching a new offering called the alignment circle. So it'll be a circle once a month on or around the new moon. That's this process of really bringing yourself back into alignment. So it will be a guided meditation, have a full circle of really inviting in all the elements and the ancestors. So there is ceremony involved, as well as practical exercise of what you need to let go so that you can come into alignment, and then how you really bring yourself energetically back into alignment so that you then have clarity to move forward and have community.
Yeah, I love it. So if you have that up and going before this is actually out, please send me the link. Otherwise, I'm assuming that people will be able to find it on your website, and we'll make sure that we have her website on the show notes so that you can click and go find it, because this is important. So I just, I work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and I cannot tell you enough of how important it is to slow down and find something that works for you so that you can really get to know yourself, trust yourself, and start following your own intuition. So, yeah.
As a business owner, it's just so important. There's so many people telling you what you should do, and that they have the golden ticket for you getting more clients and making more money and doing all these things. But the truth is, you know better than anybody else what you and your business and your clients need. So learning how to connect in, trust that, and refine that as a skill set, it's just invaluable.
Absolutely. I want to thank you. So if you're listening to this, go to Dana's website. It's danashamas.com. And she's got all kinds of things on there. I was checking it out a little bit earlier. And Dana, thank you for being on today. So I knew we would connect because we do a lot of similar practices. I don't do breath work. You go much deeper in the meditation breath work side of it than I do. And so I want people to connect with you because what you're doing is really important.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's been so much fun chatting with you and sharing, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for listening today. I want to invite you to download my free guide at resources.kimberlylebbing.com/unlock. It's called Unlocking Your Authentic Self, 5 Key Steps to Identify and Overcome Hidden Limitations in Your Life and Business and Realize Your Highest Potential. Thank you again for listening today.